Hello and welcome to the Brazilian BA guests. We have been talking about nimble since the beginning of this year, being nimble, the business capability to sense and respond to change with speed and precision. If you haven't been on this channel yet, please subscribe to it right now on YouTube, the Brazilian BA. Click on the bell so you will be warned every time we have a new video, or you can just follow us on LinkedIn by Fabrício Laguna, which my name. My guest, a different perspective, not just for a business perspective, but for a personal one. My guest is a good fellow keynote speaker, Mr. Phil Barth. Hello, Phil. Thank you for joining me today.
Fabricio, thank you for having me. I love the introduction and the little animations, and it's the first time I've ever been animated like that. I'm honored.
I'm glad you enjoyed that, Phil. So you are now a cartoon as well, not just a person. Phil, I always start this show with a question, and so we can just chat about it. The question I have for you today is how can we be nimble in real life? I have been speaking and talking about different speakers and experts about nimble for companies as an organizational capability. But people can also be nimble. I know that you have heard me talking about nimble before in an event in Chicago last year, and you got some ideas about that. I would like to see from your perspective, how do you see the capability of being nimble? And then I just lost you. Oh, you're back.
Am I here?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay.
Tell me about nimble. How did you get that? What did you get from that?
So let's talk about Chicago first, because I was in the audience when you delivered the keynote, and was just love the stories and the jungle story with the animals and so on. And I'm sure your audience has probably heard it, but what clicked for me was when you used the term nimble versus agile. And the reason it clicked for me was at the time in the IT team that I was working on, we were talking about how can we be agile? How can we be agile? How can we be more agile? And at the same time as IT is talking about that, our CEO of the entire company was talking about we need to be a more agile company. And so there was confusion. They're saying, well, does he want us to use the agile methodology all over? Is that what it is? And when you said the word nimble, it hit me. It's like, that CEO was not saying, I want the agile methodology. He was saying we need to be more nimble as a company. We were this old, stodgy company, and we needed to be more nimble. So I took that back to the company right away after I heard it.
Nice. And that's how IIBA defined the word nimble in this research. Being nimble, scalable capability for organizations to sense and respond to change. And the idea is that when we are usually talking about agile, when organizations are talking about agile, some stuff's already come on mind. Agile became an overloaded word. It's related to backlogs, to Scrum, to Kanban, to a lot of ways of working or practice or methods, frameworks. And the idea of having a different word to talk about sensing and respond to them, to change, is something very useful.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Nice.
The looks on people's faces when I said, I think what we're really talking about in this case is nimble. They were like, oh, you're right. I can't take credit. I have to give it to the Brazilian BA.
So. No, I can't take credit as well. I have to give it back to IIBA who created the story. But we are all trying. What we're doing is trying to make things more clear so we can talk about it, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Exactly. That's our job as speakers, right? And so we have to send a message out, help people to understand different concepts and try to figure out how those concepts can help them.
Right. And that was a home run concept.
Nice. And I know you have been talking very much more about how people should deal with their life than how organizations. I have been focusing very much on organizations, but I have heard so many nice presentations from you talking to people. How should they be bold, be brave, not be afraid of chickens, right? So the question is, how can we be nimble in real life? For you, what does being nimble in real life mean?
It to me means that I'm open to new ways of doing things, well, that's the biggest, new ways of doing things. Hello, fellow nimblers. So there's an old quote, and you've probably heard there are two types of people, this or that, this or that. One I read when I was a kid was called, there are two types of people in the world, those who divide the world into two types of people and those who do not. And it was called Barth's distinction. And I thought, there's another Barth in the world that's a smartass just like me. But then when I read the deeper meaning behind it, it's Karl Barth, who is a Swiss theologian. And what he was saying was, there are two types of people there is one type that says, okay, it's either this or that, and I will always believe this, and I will always do things this way. And they cause themselves a lot of extra stress, as opposed to the other type of people who don't divide the world and who look at things as, I could do this or maybe adjust. And I think that's the secret in real life, is to be able to hold multiple thoughts in your mind as being possibly correct. So it's not, well, I'm going to do this and not listen to anybody else, and anybody else who says it is wrong. It's going to be, I'm going to do this, but maybe tomorrow I'll come up with a new way of doing something. And sometimes it's forced on you. In some of my keynotes, I talk about the heart attack I had in 2015. Well, nothing like a heart attack to make you more nimble. It's like, I guess I'm going to have to change my diet, and I'm going to have to respond to stress differently, and I'm going to have to do a lot of things differently. And that was the extreme example of a nimble mindset. But I learned from that, and I learned, okay, when other options, opportunities, and so on come up, I may need to consider them, consider all your options, and then I need to move potentially in a different direction. That's very high level, but you've heard me talk about it in my keynotes too.
Yes, and that's interesting how difficult situations like the one you lived make strong changes in your mindset, in your concepts, and make you reevaluate your life. And I like it very much how you approach it about not being binary. By the way, there's a quote that say that there's three types of people: those who understand binary and those who not. Just the bad quote.
10 times. 10 times.
10 types. Yes, 10 types. Yes, 10 types. That's the one. Yeah, sure. Thank you. But being nimble have a lot to do of this ability of understanding at this context that I'm living today. That's the best approach. Not necessarily it's going to be the best approach tomorrow in another context.
Exactly. And I try to build flexibility into my day and into my calendar. There are some things I can't be nimble. I can't, if I have to go to the dentist tomorrow at 2:00, I can't be nimble at 2:00 and say, oh, I'm not going to the dentist until 3:00. I have to do that. So there are some things that you have to do,
Mm-hmm.
but for the rest of it, you need to look at, where can I flex or move differently? The best example, and we talked about this earlier this month, was I decided I wanted to be a full-time keynote speaker. So the nimble move was, I retired from my IT job in March, and now I'm pursuing the full-time speaker, which has required a completely different mindset in terms of what I'm doing. But it's been so much fun so far. And I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And that was just a completely nimble move in terms of my career.
And when you say that's a nimble move, it means that you analyzed the situation, analyzed the context, and understood that was the best approach for you at that moment, or that was a move that you were not expecting. What do you mean by a nimble move?
That's a good point. There was analysis up front. You don't change careers without some thought as to how is this going to work. But I think if I wasn't practicing being nimble, I would have just said, well, I'm going to keep doing my project management job. I'm going to keep doing my information technology job. It's what I know. It's what I'm good at. But it wasn't what the next step in my life was meant to be.
Interesting. So you're giving me some points that to me relates very much about my idea of being able. So you had some objectives or some outcomes that you expect from your life, and
Yes.
you're thinking strategically about that, and you're not closed in the same ideas and being I believe the word is stunt or something like that, and you stuck in the
Yeah.
stuck. You're not stuck. You're open to change movement, and you are analyzing and understand what's important for me. What's
Yes.
As we talk about strategy in organizations, you have strategy in your life, and what's the important thing for you, and what's the best movement for your life to achieve the goals that you have as a person.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And if you look at speaking, years ago, it was always, we're going to go to an event and I'm going to fly there or drive there or whatever and speak in front of people. Well, now we can do it. I mean, right now I'm speaking to people in Brazil and I'm not in Brazil. So the nimble thing, and I've seen some people who aren't nimble about this. They're saying, well, I just speak in person. If I can't speak in person, I'm not going to do it. But the nimble thing is to use the technology. And so when I speak in person, fine. But there are times when this technology, when Zoom or StreamYard is the way to speak to people. And so therefore, my overarching goal is to help people with my keynotes. And the nimble way to do it is sometimes I'll be there in person, sometimes I'll be online. But remembering we're going to hit that overall goal of helping people.
Nice. There are different ways, different approaches, and you are always trying to figure out what's the best for that moment in that specific audience.
Yeah. And then that also drives what you learn, how you practice, all that kind of things. If you're closed-minded and you don't want to do the Zoom way of speaking, you won't learn anything, but you also won't help people. So
nice.
that's the latest. That's one of the big nimble things that's happened in the speaking world over the past few years, in my mind.
One thing from your story that is coming to my mind is that to be nimble, I must have some defined strategy or goals. Otherwise, I cannot take decisions because I'm just flowing in the wind. So be as a leaf in the winds is not being nimble; it's just being lost. Right. So you are thinking, you are understanding, you are analyzing and taking the best decisions for every context that you have, aligned to your strategy or your goals, your purpose in your case. I believe maybe that's the best approach for you, like spreading a word, helping people with your experience.
Yes. Yeah. I think in life, you need to be clear about what your purpose is and what you want to do, and be very, you don't have to be nimble on your purpose. If this is your calling, then that's your calling and you stick to that. You do have to be nimble in how you get there.
I like that.
So I may say, well, this is the best way today to speak and influence people and help people. But tomorrow something new might happen. And I have to, number one, be aware of what the new thing is. And number two, decide if that's a better way to accomplish my life's purpose. I have to be willing to let go of the old way and do the new way.
I know a lot of people that have no clue about what their calling is, or they don't have a purpose. And that might be a hard subject for some people.
Yes.
You have a very clear purpose in life that moves you. Some people, they just don't know if they're what are they doing in this world, and maybe that's not that clear for them, or they never listened to that call. Do you have any suggestion or anything to say to those people?
Sure. A quote I read, and I'm not going to get it right because I don't have it in front of me, but it's, think about those times when you were having the most fun, It felt like you were really in your element, and write them down, list them, and then what do they have in common? So what do you really, really like to do? And if you can't make it your career today, figure out a way that maybe you can in the future. And if whatever you're doing for your career today doesn't have any of those elements, at least move to something that is more
A little
satisfying.
closer.
And the other thing I tell people, and I steal this from a motivational speaker, author. His name's Gary. Well, he goes by Gary V. He's got a very long last name. And somebody said, "Say something to me that will motivate me." And they expected him to pump him up with some kind of motivation. He said, "You are going to die." And when you think about it, we are all going to die. So if you've only got a small, and certainly in the realm of how old the planet is, a really, really tiny piece of time, you need to make the most of it and figure out what you like and then do it.
And I believe that's a nice moment to read your shirt. We all have roles to play.
Play well.
Play well, right? So play well your role. Define your role in this game and play it well.
Yeah. And we talked about this in my keynote. Another quote I love is I'm going to flake on the guy's name, but he's an author, and he says, "If I have a decision, it's either hell yeah or it's no." So whatever your hell yeah is, something hell yeah, I can get behind that, then he does that. Derek Sivers is the author. Otherwise, it's no. And as I mentioned in the keynote, that doesn't work 100% of the time. I mean, I can't say, today I have to do a colonoscopy prep. Hell yeah. Or I get to go to the dentist. Hell yeah. That doesn't work. But I also know that there are things I have to do in life to keep living. So, and keep living well.
Yeah, and that's part of the work of living, right?
Right.
Not necessarily. Right. Oh yeah. We have a comment here from Chicago calling. I would say that's Robert Snyder. Usually his name doesn't appear, but tell me, Robert, if that's you or if that's someone else. Please tell your name. Sometimes we choose our vocation, a job. Sometimes our vocation chooses us, a calling.
That's really good. Well, and that was my choice coming out of college. I wanted to be in computer science because I had an uncle in computer science, and he drove a Corvette. So I figured if you worked on computers, you'd make a lot of money and drive a Corvette. I never got a Corvette, but so I chose the job, and I enjoyed my time working in the IT field, but it wasn't the calling.
Okay. There's another comment here from Nuno, and I like it the way he approaches it because he mixes a little bit nimble with agile in a way of experimentation. So he says, Phil sensed that his job wasn't making him happy. It led to an hypothesis, and he put that as an hypothesis, that speaking was the next strategic outcome or the strategic move. Currently, Phil's responding. Next step is to measure if it was a good choice.
Yes.
And by the way, Nuno is talking from Portugal. So we are having an European audience here.
Welcome. Yeah, I actually was happy at the prior job. I tend to be a happy person, but I sensed that I could be happier and do more. And so therefore I made the leap. And we're a month in, and I would measure that so far it's been a very good choice.
Okay. So Robert saying, game on, finding the game I want to be a part of is tricky. So that idea, defining your purpose is not so easy for some people. And how do you play and what role are you having in this game is also not so easy all the time.
That's absolutely true. We talk about that with the big, bold, brilliant idea and what you really want to do. And people say, I don't know. And I say, well, then go to your bucket list and look at everything on your bucket list. And I have actually in the past taken my bucket list and done kind of an elimination tournament. Like we're going to the World Cup of ideas. And do I want to do this or that? Well, I like this one better, so it advances to the next round, and the other one goes home. Until you get to, and it may not be down to one, but you get to 3 or 4 things that could really be a calling and you really would enjoy.
I know from the story I heard from you before, and maybe you can talk a little bit more about that today, is that sometimes you take some ideas and you are very persistent on your ideas. And one of those is that you wanted to be part of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire quiz game show. And that was something that you really engaged some efforts to do, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's another good example of what we're talking about. I decided after I saw Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for the first time that I wanted to be on the show, the US version. So what I did was they did phone auditions, and I kept calling in, trying to be on the show. I studied all the questions and just had it in my mind that I would get on the show. Eventually, they did in-person auditions, and I kept failing the in-person auditions. And this is where nimble comes in, right? I want to be on the show, but I'm not doing the auditions correctly. What do I need to change? And so I Googled, how are people passing the auditions? Because there were people who had passed the auditions, been on the show, that were putting together blogs and so on. And I learned a couple of tricks for passing the audition.
That's good.
Had I not been willing to go out there and learn from others and change the way I was handling the auditions, and the biggest thing is on those auditions, if you pass the test, and I would always pass the test, then they want to just be able to see you as someone that can talk with Meredith Vieira, who was the host of the US version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So they want you to have a story that they can share. And once I learned that, I just put that on the application form. They had short questions. I just made sure my stories were on there, and I did them in a red pen and circled it with a highlighter. And so the person who was interviewing me could see that, and that's what got me on the show, was learning a new way to fill out the audition paperwork so that they could see me as a contestant.
So the key to be on the show is not having the answer for the questions. Was to be an interesting person at the show, for the audience to have fun when you're there.
Yes. Yes.
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because there are 2 times. So the first challenge was to be on the show. And the second challenge was when you are on the show, how do you deal with those questions? And how nimble you have to be to answer those questions and try to be a millionaire.
That's a very good point. The questions I had, I was actually fortunate that all the way up to $32,000, I knew at one time I wasn't sure, so I asked the audience, but I made it all the way up to the $32,000 question without having to use the other 2 lifelines, which at the time they were a 50-50, which would take out 2 of the wrong answers, right, and a phone a friend. Unfortunately, I wasn't very nimble on the $64,000 question. So I phoned a friend. I picked the wrong friend. I had a friend who would have known the answer, and I picked the wrong friend. And then after that, I did the 50-50. And I just guessed. It was a free guess, and I guessed incorrectly.
Wow, that's sad. Well, but what I want to say, if you don't know that, but you have a new chance today.
Oh man, spit take! I have another chance today. Okay,
you have another chance today because we are going to have a show. It's called Who Wants to Be Nimble?
I love it.
Are you ready for questions, Phil?
I'm ready, Fabricio. Let's do it.
I know you are nimble. You have been prepared for being in this kind of show. So I want to see it right now. I have some questions about nimbleness, and I try to bring those questions to real life. I based those questions on some characteristics of nimble organizations.
Okay.
Actually, organizations are people, right? So what organizations are doing is probably the same thing that people would be doing. And so I have questions for you. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I hope it's going to be fun. So my first question, let me put me here so I can read the question for you. My first question is, you're planning a road trip with friends, and a week before departure, one friend suggests changing the destination to a place that's further away but offers more activities. What should a nimble person do? What would you do if you were nimble? Alternative A, ignore the suggestion and keep the original plan. Alternative B, quick pull everyone's opinion to decide. Alternative C, clarify the impacts of this change so the group can make an informed decision. Alternative D, decide on your own and inform the group. What would a nimble person do in this situation? So do you want to comment the alternatives?
Okay, so A and D are out.
Why are you putting A and D out?
Well, ignoring the suggestion and keeping the original plan is the opposite of nimble.
Okay.
D, if I decide on my own and don't get the group's buy-in, I just think that's a bad idea. I'm going to go with C to get clarify the impacts, because I could poll everyone, but if they don't know anything about it, I want to get a little so they can make an informed decision. I'm going to go with C, although I don't hate B. I'm going to say C. Final answer.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I'm going to say that because I'm envisioning my wife and children, and A and D would be awful. B, if they didn't know, I'd like to be quick, but if they didn't have enough of an opinion to decide, I'm going to go with C. Final answer.
All right. So what's the right answer? And I should put the C. You're right. Well done. So and that was an interesting one. What you said, it's not about just being quick. It's about taking the best decision.
Right.
So if they're choosing without having the information, they don't know how much more it's going to cost, how long they're going to travel, what are the real impact on that vacation. So
absolutely.
Oh no, that was question number one. We
have
more.
We have more. Okay.
We have more questions for you. So let's go for question number two. Question number two. You were part of an elders neighborhood association that has a budget for community improvement projects. This year, there is a proposal to enhance the local park. Which one is the most nimble approach for funding? So we're talking about funding in your neighborhood. It's kind of personal and kind of organization, right? So, but in something you'd live in real life. So alternative A, allocate a fixed budget to plant new trees because they're green. What? Alternative B, fund the installation of new playground equipment because it was promised last year. Did I pronounce it correct? Promised?
Promised. Yeah.
Promised. Okay. Alternative C, approve funding for all submitted projects. And alternative D, fund enhancements that directly contribute to increased usage based on recent surveys about what residents need and value most. So what would you do? Do you want to comment the alternatives?
Sure. A is A. I like green trees, but no, that's not nimble. B,
that's not a good reason, right?
No, it's not a good reason. B isn't bad, but I think there's a better one. C would be nice if you could approve funding for every project ever submitted, but that's not realistic. So I'm going to go with D. That again, we've got the surveys about what they need and value the most, so we're going to fund those enhancements.
Right. Are you sure about that?
I'm going to say that's my final answer. Yes.
Right. So let's see what's the real option. Well done,
There you go. All
Phil.
right.
Well done. And that's an important concept about being nimble. So in the first one, we talking about analyzing, understanding what's going on, and helping people to have to decide to get informed decisions. That's an important point about being nimble. So help to understand what's going on, analyze it, and get informed decisions. This one is talking about funding. And that's an interesting one for organizations because some organizations are funding projects and not outcomes. We should be funding outcomes and
Right.
reevaluating outcomes. Exactly what you said when you said, I want to follow my calling. I don't know exactly how, but I will be figuring out. And Nuno brought that idea of that's an hypothesis that this is the path. I'm not sure, so let's test it and reorganize our funds. I like that. Let's see what comments we have here from the audience at this moment. I was supposed to say not happy anymore. Oh, that was something about what Nino said before. And I believe LinkedIn user sometimes is Mindy and sometimes it's Robert.
Oh, hey, Mindy.
I don't know. Since we both appear anonymous, Fabrice, we could have fun, and they're trying to make me lose in that situation. So Steven is here as well. What's the goal of the trip? So that was a good question. So that impacts on the question number one should be aligned to the goal. And about funding, Steve said funding is typically not
No, funding is not
right?
nimble. That's why you need to be nimble.
Yeah, and that's an important point for organizations. How can your funding be more nimble? And the answer that the study brings is fund outcomes, not projects, right? Focus on the results that you're looking for. Perfect. Let's go for another question.
All right.
Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Let's go. Imagine you're planning a large outdoor family reunion picnic, but the weather forecast suddenly predicts a major storm on the event day. What's the most nimble response to ensure the gathering is still enjoyable and safe for everyone? Alternative A, stick to the original plan and hope the weather clears up. Alternative B, quickly arrange an alternative indoor venue and inform all attendees of the change. Alternative C, cancel the picnic and plan a virtual meeting instead. Alternative D, ignore the weather forecast and do not make any backup plans. So what do you think is the most nimble? Do you want to comment the alternatives?
No, I'm just going to. I mean, if it's a picnic, I don't want to do it virtually. I want to actually have food and talk with everyone. So I'm going to go with B, arrange an alternative indoor venue and inform attendees of the change.
Right. And why don't you want to do it virtual?
The thing about a picnic is it's a large family reunion. We're going to want to talk, and this is one where virtual probably wouldn't work. Plus, it's a picnic, right? So everybody brings their favorite dish, and you get to enjoy all the different foods and beverages and so on. So I want it to be in person, but I don't want to just hope that the weather clears up or ignore the weather forecast because that is unsafe. So I want to do B, alternative indoor venue. And inform everyone. You have to inform people of the change.
Okay, that's important point as well. Are you sure about that?
Yes.
So what's the right question? All right answer. Well done. Alternative B, quick arrange an alternative indoor venue and inform all attendees of the change. And that's an interesting point that you brought. Perfect. Oh, I like that. You are aligning your initiative with the strategy or the goals that you're looking for. You said, I could do it virtually, but that's not reaching my goals. Yeah. That's not reaching the outcome that I expect. I want to reunite the family together in some event. The virtual meeting is not a good solution for that. I like it, how you put.
if your aunt makes really good pie, you don't want her to have it virtually and go, here, you want to try it? Oh, you can't.
No, that makes no sense. I like it. That very good. There was a suggestion here from Jerry, and he said, wait 24 hours and the weather will change, right? If that was an alternative, could be evaluated, yes, but that was not an alternative, and that's not how the game works, because the game gives you 4 alternatives, and you must pick just one.
You must pick one. Yes, this isn't Jeopardy.
Okay, so let's go for the last question I have here in my game. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go. Imagine you're someone who has always avoided public speaking due to a fear of judgment and failure. I know that's not you, Phil, but you can put yourself in that role, right? So imagine someone who is in this situation. Your friend, probably called Phil Barth, is encouraging you to present a study case of a successful project you managed in a global conference. Maybe BA Beyond, PMBA, BBC, I don't know, one of those big conferences.
One of the big ones.
What would be a nimble approach for this person? A, decide never to try public speaking and stick to what's comfortable to you. B, challenge yourself by presenting it in your smaller local community meeting and get confidence in your pace. C, tell your friend to stop suggesting new things as it makes you uncomfortable. Or D, wait for more people to encourage you so you feel more pressure to go to the global conference.
Okay. Well, we got to deal with the chickens, right? The chickens inside of you that say, don't speak, you can't do this. So A and D would just be giving into those chickens, and you wouldn't be moving out of your comfort zone. Or the bigger glow in the dark chickens too. So A and D are out. I'm sorry, A and C are out.
All right.
D is out because you're not going to put extra. All that's going to do is make you more stressed if you wait for more people to encourage you. So I'm going to say B, challenge yourself, present it to smaller local community meetings so that you can get more comfortable. I do that with all of my stories. They go to small venues first, and sometimes online, just to see, hey, is this any good? What should I change? And so on. That's how you get more confident to do it on the bigger stage. So I am going to say B, final answer.
Final answer. Are you sure about that?
I am 100% sure about that.
Okay, so let's see what's the right answer. B, and you're totally fine. You were a nimble guy. I'm sure about that. Yeah, perfect one. And there's an interesting point you spoke about. This is about challenge yourself. And the research about being nimble don't talk about challenge yourself, but talk about challenge your business. So respectfully challenge your business and trying to figure out what can be done better. And you should be challenged on and on and on and on your business. And we just brought it from a personal perspective. Challenge yourself and being bold, and don't allow those chickens to stop you.
Exactly. If you can't challenge yourself, nobody's gonna listen to you when you challenge the business or other people.
Perfect. And one thing that I liked a lot about this question, and you presented how you do it, is that you don't have to challenge yourself and put yourself in a very bad situation where you are not comfortable with. You can take small steps. So it's not about being too fast. It's about having the right pace. So nimbleness is about identifying the right pace for you and evolve with that pace and evolve with that.
Yep, absolutely.
Very, very, very good. So crawl, walk, and then run, right? So
I like that.
Evolve step by step.
But don't just sit and not move. You move. So you crawl, you walk, you run.
Perfect. So you evolve as an individual, you evolve as a professional, you evolve as a human being. Perfect. What did you think about our game? How to be nimble?
I love that. That is awesome.
We could do more about that. That was fun. Yes.
That is incredible. That was really well done.
And I can see why they choose you as a competitor. You are a very good competitor. You could comment and you're a good guy in answering. You just figure out all the good answers.
Well, until that last one, anyway. That's another story for another time.
Perfect. Phil, that's what I had for today, but I would like to hear from you. What else do you think is important for people who are maybe watching us and trying to think how they could be more nimble in their life? How could they bring some of those learnings or those ideas that we are bringing in a personal perspective?
So I think we covered a lot of what I thought, my thoughts were around nimble. The other thing I would add is you need to be exposed to a lot of different types of thought. So I find I am more nimble and able to change things when I learn more, when I read more. And even so, I like to read. A lot of it's audiobooks, but even within the reading, I used to be very inflexible. It's like, well, I'm going to read a business book, and then I'm going to read another business book, and after that, I'll probably read another business book. I've started to read different biographies, fiction, just things that engage your mind and make you think differently. The more you learn and the more diverse that learning is, the more nimble you will be able to be, because you will just have different concepts. And I just recently finished The Count of Monte Cristo. I'd never read it before. A very long fiction book, but it's thoroughly enjoyable. I don't know that my next nimble idea will come from having read that book, but it might. And so I have switched to biographies and fiction, as well as still some business books. But you need to have a very big base of knowledge by watching podcasts like this, and by just opening your mind to as many concepts as you can. And the other thing, and I tell my kids this all the time, just because somebody doesn't believe the same thing you believe doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong. You have to consider the fact that wherever they're coming from it in a good place. So they think differently than you, but appreciate the differences and be flexible, nimble.
I like that, and that could be a calling from this episode today, that we should challenge ourselves more and more about being more open in what we are consuming as content, in reading, in movies, in even chatting with different people.
Yes.
As you said, with people who have different opinions, and trying to understand where does that come from, because it seems so real, is so important for them. Probably have some learnings, something I can learn from that side, and we should try to see things in an holistic way. And for that, we need diversity in our lives.
Yes. Yeah. One of the greatest experiences when I was in the IT field was when I got to work with our global sales organization. And so I worked directly with people in Brazil, in the various Western Europe countries, in Japan, China. And so we communicated and we learned about each other's culture. But the ideas that came from that diverse group were the best I've ever had in the business world.
Right. One thing I'm very happy to know, Phil, is that we are going to be together again soon at PA and Beyond in Belgium. That's a conference with a very diverse group of speakers talking with very different points of view. And the theme for the conference this year is perspectives. So I believe that aligns very much with what we are talking today.
Yes.
So if you are around living in Belgium or the Netherlands or Amsterdam, or Amsterdam in the Netherlands, or Denmark in Copenhagen, or even Luxembourg, look for that BA and Beyond conference. It's going to be great. Phil is going to be there in the Belgium session. I'm going to be involved, and I'm very excited.
I can't wait to connect with all of you. And I've heard that Leuven has the biggest bar in the world. So, and it's Belgian beer. So I was excited before I knew that, but I am just so excited now.
Probably some very nice perspectives we're going to learn in that. So there's a comment here from LinkedIn user on the topic of book. I've been reading non-fiction for a decade. I'm looking forward to a period of reading mostly fiction books, including some of the classics that really can give you different perspective.
Yep.
Probably the same LinkedIn user says, my philosophy is that I have something to learn from everyone. That's me.
Yep.
I think an empathetic BA asks, what else? Who else?
Mm-hmm.
And why?
Why?
So the Count of Monte Cristo movie is good. I didn't read the book, but I saw the movie.
I have to do that. I have to watch the movie.
Usually when people read the book and watch the movie later, they think the movie craps. Always, because it's never as good as your imagination figuring out all the story. But the movie is good.
Good things about the movie, though. I would definitely give it a try. Definitely have to.
Right. So about the conference that we mentioned, BA and Beyond, that's the link, baandbeyond.eu. And Steve Jobs is saying perspective makes a huge difference. It aids in learning. And he also mentioned something about context, right? And I don't know exactly where we were when you mentioned that, Steve, sorry, but context always matters. Context not just matters, context rules, right?
Right.
So I guess that's it for today. It was so much a pleasure and so much fun to have you here. I would like to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk with you, and I'm glad we get to talk face to face in Belgium at the world's biggest bar next month.
Yeah, face to face, beer to beer. It's gonna be fun. I'm not very much a beer drinker, but being in Belgium, that's a different situation, right? So yeah, I'm certainly going to drink some beer there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cheers with you. Thank you, Phil. Hope to see you again soon in Belgium, but not just in Belgium, around here, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you are watching this video until this moment, please give you as a like, mark it, and share it with your friends. It was fun to have you all here. Thank you for joining me. Phil, thank you.